Considering the fact that despite of our rich linguistic and cultural diversity, our languages are fading into silence, how concerning is that situation?
First, let me just thank you for the opportunity just to express my views also in this topic. Namibia has more languages, but they seems to be fading. It's not because maybe people like the natives are not willing to uplift their own languages, but also from the point of the government, I am of the views that they are not encouraging the natives to be proud of their own languages. This is one of the reasons why maybe now we can see people are now willing to take their children to different schools just to learn foreign languages. But now to our own languages, I think they are not interested.
Now, with, of course, your expertise, which languages do you see, maybe from experience and from collected data, are at the risk of extinction in Namibia?
Few months ago, the IPPR held a conference in Hilton where they discussed various languages that seems to be fading. One of the languages that seems to be fading are Khoikhoi. The language seems to be fading because our own people, the native speakers of that language, especially the San people and the Khoikhoi, they are not being recognized in terms of maybe being given the freedom of expressing themselves in their native languages. We are seeing newspapers. Newspapers are mostly just written in sometimes Oshiwambo, Sirozi, and English. So, but if we can also motivate our own speakers from those languages to take up the linguistic phase and maybe expand on and give us more about their languages, then I believe we can avoid the extinction of these languages. And also to promote them, maybe it can be accepted as an official language in their parts of where they are mostly living. And speakers in those regions or maybe areas can now interact in those languages without even being stopped, or maybe they can visit their constituency councillor offices, and then they are able to interact in their own languages instead of just depending on English. So I believe that can help.
Now, what could be some of the contributing factors? I know you mentioned, perhaps you can just add on, behind some of the indigenous languages facing extinction, and what are some of the possible ways that we can preserve them?
When you are carrying on the process of language planning, when you are planning on which language to be declared an official language and so on, there are some factors that you have to look at. One of the factors is the language going to fit in the modernized society? Because now, let me just give an example. When English was declared an official language in 1990, they considered what we call the modernization in the process of language planning policy. So that means that the language to be declared an official language should be able to compete with other languages in many areas, such as business, maybe social, and just to enter the world linguistic phase. So if we, for example, drive Oshiwambo to be the official language of our country, do we have enough sources that we can use? Maybe, like, do we have dictionaries whereby people even from Europe can come and then learn it from our own dictionaries that we have written? So those are some of the things that we have to consider. To avoid the extinction of some of these languages, I believe we can just take an example from South Africa. What happened there? They have 11 official languages that are being accepted. Here in Namibia, we only have one, English. So if we can accept all the languages in Namibia to be officially used, even in our courts, even in our means of communication, like at the government state, then we can preserve our own languages. Because I also had a suggestion that our regions are being divided according to how we speak. Let's say the O4 regions. All the speakers in those O4 regions, most of them are Vambus, Oshuambo people, speaking people. So if we can maybe divide our regions and then say, okay, we have the certain languages, maybe they can take Khoikhoi as the second official language. Everyone they can...
Just to preserve.
Yeah. If they can't interact in English, obviously they can interact in another language that is mostly spoken in that specific region. So in that way, we can preserve our languages and promote them more.
You spoke about South Africa having 11 official languages and Namibia only one. How has the use of English in all formal settings created a situation where ordinary citizens are addressed in a language they fully don't understand?
It's a good question, and I can just give an example. In one of my articles that I recently wrote, I gave an example of Honorable Kadiva Mtumwa. Honorable Kadiva Mtumwa was appointed as governor here in Windhoek. It was going to make sense if he was going to deliver a first speech here in Windhoek in English. But going to Enana, addressing 99% of people that are Oshuambo native speakers, or maybe they can understand Oshuambo, but you are doing so in English. It was totally a turn-off to me, because coming from the linguistic profession, I was expecting her to do that in Oshuambo, so that everyone can just get their messages and then interact more compared to when delivering it in English. But it is not her fault. It is our government's fault. And a government official has to follow the government procedures on how to interact with people. She can't do that in Oshuambo because she's a government official, and then the government structures are saying we must respect our constitution. She was respecting the constitution, but I guess 80% of people that attended are our elders in the villages. They didn't even maybe get the full 100% messages. But if that was being done in Oshuambo, the message would be conveyed more compared to how it is now being done in some other foreign languages that we just adopted for the sake of national unity.
Now, in our homes, we have the saying that we should teach our children in their, own languages. Teach them how to write, teach them how to read, whether it's Kwekwe, whether it's Nama, and so forth. Do you think enough is being done, not just at the school level, but also at home?
Look, Nelson Mandela, the South African hero and the first black president, said, if you want to convey a message that will stay with the person you are conveying the message to, you must do so in the language that they understand the most. But if you do so in a foreign language, that message will not be taken to them as a serious message. It will be stored in their minds, but not in their hearts. So the government has made sure that the use of native languages is our medium of instruction. And growing up in grade 1 until 5, there maybe, or 3, we were being told in Oshuambo. I did Oshindonga. And this is because the elements of linguistics, a small child will learn more if the message is being conveyed in the language that they understand the most. Our own performances as schools in this country, if you look at how the Herero speakers are performing in their own language compared to how they are performing in English, most of our children are even just failing English, and then that is the end of their career dreams. But if we have taken serious the use of our own languages, we must not restrict our children culture. No, you must just learn Oshuambo. You can pass, you can have level 1, level 2 or level 3 or maybe A star. But if you have a U in English, NUST will not accept you. So that is just another oppression in a different way that we can't imagine, because it is now being accepted as a normal thing.
Now, lastly, Allexer, how best can government officials be encouraged to address communities in the language most widely spoken in their respective areas?
I believe, and I have advocated this before, that government should regulate the use of other native languages as accepted and official languages. If our parliament can pass a bill that says everyone is allowed to use their own languages in case they are failing to express themselves more in the official language, which is now English. So if we can regulate the use of our native languages, let's say the Rukwangari, if someone from Rundu can speak in their own Rukwangari when they're visiting their mayor's office, then it's a good thing. And in that way, we are giving our people more freedom of expression to express their need, express their feelings in their languages that they understand the most. A good example can be like now when we are having this interview now. If we were all, even let's say Shwambo speakers, and this conversation was going to be in Shwambo, we will have more to say. But because of the limitation of words that we know in English, and then it's now being used as a lingua franca, we are forced to have the conversation in English, because this is the lingua franca. Everyone has to use English in order to communicate with another person. But if our government can follow suit in what South Africa is doing, our people in courts will just express themselves in the languages they understand. And in that way, we will have more translators. Even it's another form of creating employment. And also, to come to the point of government officials, to address maybe the nation in the languages they understand, that will come from the lawmakers themselves. They must regulate the usage of our own native languages. When political parties are going to campaign, sometimes they do so in the languages that people understand. But when it's a meeting, now let's say there's an initiative of a road that is passing where the government officials are now going to meet with the residents, like the affected residents. The meeting is in English. People don't even understand, most of them. Us that understand are now here in Windhoek, but back in our villages, only our grandmothers that are there. They come with their own translators. The villagers don't even trust what the translator is saying, because they are saying, we don't know who this translator is. But if they can send someone who understands Oshwambo or maybe any language that is being used, then I believe it will be a good thing.
Do you think the reason why most of the languages are fading away is because there aren't enough cultural, activities being celebrated, where history within the different ethnic groups is shared amongst the youth, or just generally the public?
Yes, I am of that view. Because we used to have a week dedicated to culture, where people just rock up wearing their enverera and other attires. But what is being done in that week? We don't used to gather people and maybe have their own views on how they think culture should be promoted. What used to happen is that we just buy our fancy attires and then put on to identify that, oh, this one is from the Awambo community and this one is from the Herero, like that. But what we are failing to do is, maybe the government should, this is now through the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, if we can have more events celebrating our own cultures, I think this will give more freedom, and it will also drive other other foreign nationals to seeing us celebrating our own cultures, they might also just be interested in learning how we do our ways. There was a conversation that Namibia is trying to adopt Swahili as one of our medium of instruction language that can be used in schools, but I was of different views. My question was, what is driving our government to recognize another foreign language as to be imposed in our people again? Why can't we select one of our languages and maybe make that language, put it the same center where English is now? If it's Osherero, Osherero, we'll learn. If it's Khoikhoi Hoab, we'll learn. But I understand that the selection of English in 1990 was to avoid cultural conflicts and some other things. But many years now, from over 30 years now, from 1990 until now, I think it's now time for the linguists to just take up the space and then advocate for more language use. We can't just leave linguistics to politicians, because they will obviously select a language that favors their political ambitions. Yes.
Thank you so much, Allexer, for making time to be with us here. And I think it's very important that we preserve our cultures within the ethnic groups. And I think eventually we will get there.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that discussion of this kind will be more normal now. So we must keep on bringing language experts and other experts in other different fields of learning, just so we promote our languages.